It is my privilege now to introduce our speaker, Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan. As Managing Director and CEO of BSE, Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan heads the first stock exchange of India. BSE is ranked as the largest exchange in the world in terms of number of stocks listed. Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan is best known as the father of modern financial derivatives in India. He was part of a small team of 5 people selected from IDBI to set up the National Stock Exchange. At NSE, he set up the first commercial satellite network, the initial technology platform, the Nifty Index, and NSE's certification in financial markets. At BSE, Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan is credited for implementing the fastest trading system in India with 200 microseconds response time. In addition, he has been responsible for the revamping of BSE, bringing equity, currency, and interest rate derivatives to the exchange, and introducing mobile trading systems in India. He was also the CEO of a cricket team in its formative years, the Mumbai Indians, in addition to his role as the president and CIO of Reliance Group. Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan serves on numerous prestigious boards and advisory committees and has been quoted and published in various magazines, newspapers, and other media worldwide over the last 2 decades. He holds a B.Tech in Mechanical Engineering from IIT Bombay and a postgraduate degree in management from IIM Calcutta. Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan will speak on translating the vision for unified capital market. Ladies and gentlemen, Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Prabodh Bhai, Samir, Gangadhar, Tarun, Jayesh, and Ajesha. Thank you very much for coming today. It's a very important topic, and we have what I call the author of FSLRC, and of course, he has been working with the Ministry of Finance on this, what we call miscellaneous parts of the budget, which include many things which we are gathered to discuss here, Dr. Ajay Shah. So for me, it's an important event. Many of us don't know how life is going to change in financial markets over the next 10 years. 1992 to 2001, we had several changes. Setting up of SEBI. In fact, SEBI was set up a little earlier, but it got the powers in 94. The act was passed in 94. But the changes have been very, very rapid those days. First 10 years of reforms were really reforms. What we call reforms today are not even close to that. But what happened in those days was that we touched only on the stock markets. The stock markets were the bad boys. So they needed reforms. Everything else in India was working very, very good. So nothing needed reforms there. If you recall Harshad Mehta situation, there was a part of money which came to the stock exchanges, but where did it come from? It came from banking system. But somehow perception was created that all the yields were there in banking system, broking system or the stock exchanges, and everything else was fine. And that effectively put a lot of emphasis on reforming the stock exchanges. NSE was set up, BSE was automated, all other exchanges were automated. And those were the days we set up NSE, then BSE became automated in quick succession, then nationwide network, and then we had the depositories, clearing corporations, margining system, and culminating into the derivatives for equities in 2001-2, right? So, and of course, that happened under another stress by Ketan Parekh scam. Again, it became a stock broking scam, and some more reforms were sort of needed. But effectively, the rest of the country kept on saying, these guys are bad, and we need to reform them, and they got reformed. If you go sort of forward 20 years, 1994, NSE was set up, and now 2015, 21 years. What has happened is, the stock market is larger than banking system by 25% or more. Can you believe it? And still stockbroking or the stock exchanges have not got even closer to being as respectful as banking. But somehow, the stock markets have become very large. the total market capitalization of Indian markets is around 1,03,000, 1,06,000, 106 lakh crore, which is $1.6 trillion. Indian banking system, in contrast, very respectable, very respectful, complies with everything. But the total banking system assets are 80 lakh crore. It is basically around 27, 28% lower. If you take away the SLR part, then 28 lakh crore go. What remains is 52 lakh crore. I might be wrong here and there. I'm just trying to give you some perspective and some messages. If you take away NPAs, what happens? Somebody will say it will remain 40, we will remain, somebody will say 45. We can have debates, but effectively, today, banking system is less than half, practically, the size of stock markets. Why? It's because we didn't do reforms in the banking system. We lived on the past glory and also on comparable framework of saying that these guys are bad, reform them. We are good in contrast, so we don't need reforms. And that is what basically happened everywhere. In fact, I got a friend from US last month. He was working with me in many such initiatives, and then he went back to US those days in 90s. And he said it was a new day every day. In 1990s was sort of reforms happened under stress. We had balance of payment crisis, and so reforms happened. And then we had another issue in Ketan Parekh scam, and so reforms happened. We kind of go from crisis to crisis, and reforms happen only in that small window when nobody wants to oppose. So when this new government came, there were reforms to be sort of done under FSLRC. A committee was set up. The committee had taken great pains to come out with newer sort of ways of doing things, reforming the markets even more. And somehow we were all wondering whether this new government will actually accept it and run with it, will be able to implement unless there is a crisis. And we were all skeptical that we are here, we have several regulators. In fact, that was another interesting stuff, that SEBI was set up and it was reasonably successful in its initial years. And then we thought creating more regulators is a great idea. So we kept on creating new regulator every year or probably every 2 years. So we had PFRDA, we had IRDA, we had this, we had that, and we created more and more regulators. And somehow, I thought at some point in time we will have more regulator, even one regulator for one policy also, you know. So that was a framework that perhaps more regulators are more needed. And somewhere, FSLRC came with a totally new approach, saying the entire financial markets is one. The consumers are actually using these financial markets, and they face problems, and these regulators are having several sort of areas which are falling in the cracks. So how do you create a customer-facing regulator, and then you create various other regulators? But earlier, we were cutting the cake on vertical basis, on product basis. So insurance, you have a separate regulator. Pension, you have a separate regulator. Securities market, you have a separate regulator, and so on and so forth. Now, we are trying to cut the cake horizontally. So if you see how the structure is going to happen, we were cutting it vertically, now we are going to have it horizontally. It's a nice concept. But since you have already cut the cake vertically, how do you get that horizontal part, right, without breaking up into too many pieces? And we were all very, very skeptical, saying how this is going to be achieved, because it's nice to have a beautiful concept, but you are actually having a reality of having too many regulators. And so how do you reach there? For me, this budget has come out with some phenomenal work on that side, saying the government is committed to FSLRC, implementing FSLRC in all its hues. It has also figured out a way to go and implement, say, FSAT. There was a concept of FSAT in FSLRC, that is the appellate tribunal for everything which is relating to financial markets, whether it is in insurance, whether it is in pension, whether it is in securities market, and so on and so forth. We thought, how is it going to happen? And suddenly, we have this securities appellate tribunal where you can go and appeal. it is happening in a way which is practical. It is happening in a way which is measured. And so the merger of FMC and SEBI is what I call the first step in that direction, saying you are merging all the regulate. Basically, FMC is also, although it's a commodities market futures regulator, but effectively, the futures are financial products. The forwards, which are standardized forwards, are basically financial products. So that's a first cut. And somehow, everyone seems to be thinking it's a great idea. It will have the same know your client requirement. Almost all brokers are similar, probably barring 10%. All brokers overlap between stock markets and commodities markets. And so if you merge, then you don't have to create two balance sheets, two subsidiaries, and so on and so forth. You don't have several regulators coming and inspecting you. You don't have minutely different regulations of how to deal with customers, what is the way to behave with the customer, and so on and so forth. And that, for me, is going to reduce the cost for member brokers going forward. Second part was, which is more what I call controversial as of now. But once you implement, you will figure out that this was a good thing to do, which is separating the public data office from the RBI. What I've been reading about, since I had to speak today, I've been reading furiously over the last few days. And what I've figured that most countries which are developed have already got this done. So there is nothing new which we are trying to do. And in a sense, the government will be able to also come to you and me to raise funds for itself. Today, you're basically government wanting funds. RBI auctions to only banks and people who get connected to them or who are regulated by them. And everyone else is actually going through the banks to invest into those government bonds. But if I usually, when I don't invest in stock markets, I invest because I run a stock market by regulations, and otherwise I don't want to invest in stock markets. So I put it in fixed deposits. And then if I had a choice to invest in government bonds, I would rather invest in government bonds, right? I am a risk-averse investor. And why would I invest through 3 layers and lot of cost? Instead, I'll straight away go to the government and give money to them. And that differential which is taken up by intermediaries, actually government can give me a little more interest, and still both of us will be benefited. Today, I get less returns and government actually pays more. The differential goes to the intermediaries. And then they have to create a lot more intermediaries to just take up the bond issuance, which nobody wants to buy, but these people want to issue, and so on and so forth. And so for me, the PDO part is practically public debt office part, that is government's own debt. That needs to be managed independently, and now probably should happen. The time has come. The related part is that for the broker members of the exchanges, they will also have a more liquid bond market that will be developed. Till now, we have been crying that India doesn't have a corporate debt market which is vibrant and liquid, and that's why we shouldn't have the government bonds listed on the exchanges, or at least traded easily on exchanges. Today, try getting into government bonds. Have any one of you invested in government bonds as individuals? One hand is going up, and that is it, right? And it must be really tough for you to have invested, and then you must be cursing yourself for doing that, right? Because it has been made extremely difficult for retail people to get involved into government bond. With PDO, with trading on the exchanges, and if we structure it well, that is, if we have bunching of the expiry dates for all the debt that is being issued in 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year, 30 year, but on particular dates, then we will have a good yield curve, but more importantly, we will have large amount of debt actually falling due on one particular date, so you will have more liquidity coming. We can, of course, put market makers and other mechanisms to bring in more liquidity, but if you have $500 billion of government debt and $150 billion or 200 billion of corporate debt, which is currently coming out, you're going to have a huge sort of opportunity for everyone to do government bonds. Today, you are investing, or your clients, if you are brokers, your clients are investing into risk instruments only in stock markets, equities. bonds, when they come, last 5 years, BSE has been collecting 90% of the corporate debt issued in the country. 90% of the debt issued by anyone in corporate India is actually collected by BSE. Whether it is tax-free, whether it is taxable, and so on and so forth. And those debts come into the market if they are from good companies, good papers. They are bought and then kept into the sidelines. They never come out in the market. There is no liquidity. But once the government bonds start coming in, everything else also will start riding on that. You will have some risk-free, and then over and above that, you will have risky assets coming in. And for me, this is actually good for the broking industry, good for Indians in general, investors who want to invest in what I call fixed income securities. If you don't want to invest in insurance, you can invest through directly now, going forward as and when the PDO comes up. Inflation targeting is another framework, although not part of the budget, but it was, I think, signed the next day, right? So inflation targeting is another framework that if you give one single job to a regulator or an executor, it's easy for them to coordinate. If they have to do 15 different things, then you don't know which is the highest priority. So inflation targeting, when this government came into power, there were 3 issues which needed to be resolved. The largest issue was corruption. The second was inflation. And third, which is actually the mother of all, is the skilling and job creation, right? These 3 issues were to be resolved. Inflation, in a sense, has got resolved in a partial way on immediate basis. But there are issues that inflation has got resolved not because of any efforts on part of us. There is no regulatory thing which has helped. It is the international frameworks that has helped. But if you have to do it yourself, then what are the frameworks you need to have? And this inflation targeting is a good way to measure a particular organization, saying, I'm giving you a job, and are you doing it well or not? That single job. If you have 15 jobs, then how do you measure, right? And inflation is an extremely important issue for this country and for the world, but this country, being so poor, it is absolutely important. And for me, inflation targeting is going to be the main issue going forward for the regulators and the government. Of course, job creation will be another issue, and how BSE participates, because BSE needs to also think up itself. Like today afternoon, I was sitting in a meeting, and we were waiting for the minister to come, and one of the industrialists asked me, what is your mission as an exchange? He was surprised that such a young fellow was CEO of an exchange, and he said, oh, you must be a management graduate. And I said, yes. So he said, what is the mission of your BSE? And I said, mission of BSE is wealth creation and job creation for India. And he was totally flabbergasted. He said, I thought you guys were for trading. And I said, trading for the sake of trading, or BSE, trading is one of the activities BSE does. It is not the main activity, although many people think trading is what exchanges are for. They are for channelizing savings of the economy into productive abilities. Households in India save 30% of $2.1 trillion. 20% is close to 600 billion plus. That needs to be channelized into productive capital. That is the companies, the governments, the manufacturing, ports, roads, airports, all of that require funds. But because we have been only managing only risky assets, we have not created a framework to give risk-free assets. If we are able to give that, we are going to be able to channelize savings of India much more efficiently, and also attract people who are generally risk-averse. Many people are risk-averse, probably 70, 80, 90%. And if we are able to create a framework for them to come and directly invest through stock markets, many of the scams today which are happening will go away, because you are giving risk-free assets to the investors. And so, for me, BSE's job is to channelize that savings into what I call productive capital, and $600 billion with zero growth over 7 years will be $4.2 trillion. India requires only $1 trillion for infrastructure over the next 5-6 years. It's easy to even collect from us, but out of $600 billion, less than 10% go to financial assets. 90% go into non-financial assets, whether real estate, gold, other stuff. How do we make people trust the markets? And this is a brilliant way to do stuff in terms of getting everyone more transparently, whether it is debt, equities, and everything here is what I call mark-to-market. We don't give anyone leeway to not show some of the NPAs differently. So for me, India is on the move, and things are changing. Fundamental infrastructure framework is changing. A new wave of reforms is coming by way of FSLRC. And what is given in the budget for me is basically a stepwise approach to implementing the FSLRC framework. So kudos to people who actually visualize this FSLRC framework, and kudos to people who have decided to implement it in right earnest. So thank you very much for coming. I hope I give you some idea on what's coming. Thank you very much.